Good afternoon to you. We welcome you to this live broadcast of the National Assembly on this 25th day of May. The year is 2022. This broadcast is being brought to you courtesy of the collaboration between the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation and the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit. A lot has been lined up before the floor of the House. And to just take you through the highlights in the order of business this afternoon is that the chairperson, Departmental Committee on Matters Defense and Foreign Relations, will be moving a special motion. And this particular motion is in regards to the report of the vetting on nominees for appointment as ambassadors, high commissioners, as well as permanent secretaries. They're taking into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee on Matters Defense and Foreign Relations in its report of the vetting of the nominees for approval as ambassadors, high commissioners, and permanent secretary. And the report having been laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, May 24th, 2022, and also pursuant to the provisions of Article 132, subsection 2E of the Kenyan Constitution, the Foreign Service Act number 12 of 2021, and Section 3 and Section 8 of the Public Appointment and Parliamentary Approval Act of 2011, the House approves the appointment of persons as ambassadors, high commissioners, and permanent secretaries. The persons in total are 21 who have been proposed to represent Kenya as high commissioners in foreign countries. After consideration of that particular report, the House will then move into considering the budget estimates for the financial year 2022-2023. This being a general debate, day 2, as highlighted in the order paper. This morning, the House commenced debate on the budget estimates during the morning session. The motion seeks to have the House approve the issuance of monies from the consolidated funds to meet the expenditure during the year ending 30th June 2023, and this is in respect of the votes contained in the first schedule of the order paper under the Committee of Supply. Also given priority in the order paper this afternoon is the Finance Bill, Bill number 22 of the year 2022. And this particular bill is by the Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Matters Finance and National Planning. Another motion is the report on the examination of the financial statements for the national government. And this is for the financial year 2018-2019 by the Chairperson, Public Accounts, that the House adopts the report of the Public Accounts Committee on the examination of the report. And this particular report is the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements for the national government for the financial year 2018-2019. The order paper appears to be full of motions this afternoon. The implementation status on the report of a petition on irregular renewal of leases of land by the Del Monte Kenya Limited and eviction of workers from their land in Roysambu by the Kenya Defence Forces is another motion on the order paper this afternoon. The last motion for consideration before the floor of the House this afternoon is the study visit to the Legislative Assembly of Alberta, Canada, by the Chairperson Committee on Member Services and Facilities, that the House adopts the report of the Committee on Member Services after the committee visited Alberta, Canada on 14th to 18th October 2019. And this particular report was laid on the table of the House on the first day of December 2020. The Prompt Payment Bill, Senate Bill number 16 of the year 2021, a bill by the Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Matters Finance and National Planning, is a bill at the second stage, and we await to hear the contributions from members of Parliament in regards to this particular bill. And the bill seeks to cure the issue of delayed payment on services rendered to various institutions and corporations. Another bill from the Senate for consideration before the House this afternoon is the Manx Bill, Bill number 9 of the year 2020. And this particular bill is being fronted by the Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning. Lastly, a bill to be considered from the Senate is the County Boundaries Bill, Bill number 20 of the year 2021, by the Chairperson, Justice and Legal Affairs. A couple of members of Parliament will be asking questions for reply before specified departmental committees. The first question given priority on the order paper this afternoon is a question by West Pokot County MP Lillian Tomitom, who will be asking the Cabinet Secretary for Interior coordination of national government, measures that have been put in place to curb the rising cases of insecurity at the borders of West Pokot, Turkana, Elgeyo Marakwet, Baringo, and Laikipia counties that have led to the loss of lives as well as destruction of properties, particularly in the recent cases that claimed lives in the recent past. Her questions will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Matters National Security and Administration. The Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Justin Muturi, is in the chamber this afternoon. I'm now handing you over to follow up on the live broadcast. My name is Gladys Mungai. Enjoy your viewing.
Na tuombe. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu, ambaye kwa hekima na mema wako umeteua nyadhifa za viongozi na mabunge kwa ustawi wa jamii na utawala wa haki wa wanadamu, twakusihi utusame kwa neema nyingi sisi watumishi wako ambao umerithika kutuita ili tutekeleze shughuli muhimu za jamhuri yetu. Twakuomba uteremshie baraka zako sisi tuliokutanika hapa, utujalie tuyatende na kuyafikiria mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa ajili ya haki na uaminifu, ili utukufu na sifa zako ziendelezwe, na ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amen. Sergeant at Arms, ring the quorum bell.
The House is this afternoon once again experiencing a repeat of the events as it was during the morning sitting. The House doesn't have the requisite quorum to commence business this afternoon, and so the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Justin Muturi, has directed that the quorum bell be rung for 10 minutes, and this is to give some leeway to members of Parliament to access the chamber this afternoon. According to the set rules, is that at any given time the House is sitting, at least 50 members of Parliament must be in the chamber for the House to commence business. A look at the order paper this afternoon is that pursuant to Standing Orders 42A, subsection 5, members of Parliament will be asking questions. And to just highlight further questions by Honourable Member for West Pokot County, Honourable Lillian Tomitom, who has questions directed to the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government. Apart from getting to understand the measures that have been put in place to curb the rising cases of insecurity at the borders of West Pokot, Turkana, Elgeyo Marakwet, Baringo and Laikipia counties, the Honourable Member will also be seeking to understand could the Cabinet Secretary also outline the steps that the government has taken, and this is to address the increasing cases of insecurity in West Pokot County. And could the Cabinet Secretary outline the plans in place to assist those affected by insecurity, and in particular to relocate and resettle residents of Cheptelel area displaced due to insecurity along the borders of West Pokot and Elgeyo Marakwet counties. And this particular question also dominated the National Assembly proceedings yesterday, with members of Parliament reacting to answers or a response to a statement from the chair of the National Assembly Security Committee that had been sought by West Marakwet West Member of Parliament on insecurity in the region. The quorum has been achieved, and I'll hand you over so that we can follow up on the live proceedings in the chamber.
Commence business. We now have quorum.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Majority Whip.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Wednesday, May 25th, 2022, afternoon sitting. A. Session of paper number 01 of 2022 and National Automotive Policy. On National Automotive Policy. B. Report of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect of the State Officers and Public Officers Motor Car Loan Scheme Fund, statements for the year ended 30th June 2021 and the certificate therein. C. Report of the Auditor General and financial statements on Ways of Fund Oversight Board for the year ended 30th June 2021 and the certificate therein. D. Report of the Auditor General and financial statement on Women Enterprise Fund Oversight Board for the year ended 30th June 2021 and the certificate therein. E. Report of the Auditor General on annual report of the Kirinyaga University financial statement for the year ended 30th June 2019 and 2019-2020 and the certificate therein. F. Report of the Auditor General and financial statement on National Government Constituencies Development Fund for Embakasi North Constituency for the year ended 30 June 2020 and the certificate therein. G. Report of the Auditor General and financial statement on National Government Constituencies Development Fund for Embakasi North Constituency for the year ended 30 June 2019 and the certificates therein. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. Honourable members, take the opportunity to introduce the following group who are in the public gallery. One champion from one headquartered in Washington Community Advocacy Group for Kenya and Ethiopia branch. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
Go to the first segment, questions. First question by the member for Pokot County, the Honorable Lillian Tomitom.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 42A, I rise to ask question 124 of 2022 to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government. First question, Mr. Speaker. Could the Minister state the measures put in place to curb the rising cases of insecurity at the borders of West Pokot, Turkana County, Elgeyo Marakwet, Baringo, and Laikipia counties that have led to the loss of lives, destruction of properties, particularly recent cases that claimed the lives of Alex Ruto, Joshua Capel in Arpolo sublocation, Lomut location on 1st January 2022 and 22nd March 2022 respectively. Mr. Mukengura James in Sakato sublocation on 23rd of March 2022 and Mr. Merimu Kokwo in Arpolo sublocation on 30th 2022 in Akiriamet areas of West Pokot County. My second question, Mr. Speaker, is that could the Cabinet Secretary outline the steps that the government has taken to address the increasing cases of insecurity in West Pokot County? Third but not least, could the Cabinet Secretary outline the plans in place to assist those affected by insecurity, and in particular to relocate and resettle residents of Cheptulel area displaced due to insecurity along borders of West Pokot and Elgeyo Marakwet? I'd also wish to add, Mr. Speaker, that we've had a lot of problems.
There is a question.
Yeah.
There's no debate. So you only deal with what is here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security.
Thank you.
The next question is by the member for Marsabit County, the Honorable Safia Sheikh Adan. Member for Honorable Safia.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I raise to ask question number 125 of 2022 in today's order paper, and it is directed to the Cabinet Secretary of Interior and Coordination of National Government. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide a list of all reported cases of gender-based violence across the country and in particular in Marsabit County, indicating the number of the victims raped and or killed from April 2021 to date? Could the Cabinet Secretary provide the status of investigation into the said gender-based violence cases in Marsabit County and confirm the number of arrests made, if any, and the suspect in court of law for this act? Could the Cabinet Secretary provide the measures that the ministry has taken to stop these cases in the country, in particular in Marsabit County. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Question will similarly be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. The last question is by the member for Kuresoi South, the Honorable Tonui.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to ask this question. My question is number 126 of 2022, and I'm directing my question to the Cabinet Secretary for Transport and Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development. Question number 1, could the Cabinet Secretary explain the delays in the construction of the Lechuet Jeram Bridge in Kuresoi South constituency, which was launched in the year 2017? Could the Cabinet Secretary also state the scope of outstanding works, indicate when the construction of the project will resume, and the expected completion timelines? Number 3, could the Cabinet Secretary provide the total cost of the project, the amount paid to date, and the outstanding amount, if any? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing. The next segment of this order, number 7, is statements, and is a response to a request for a statement by the Honorable Eden Duale from the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs. Honorable Kigano.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. This is a response to the request for statement by the Honorable Aden Duale regarding the appointment of the chairperson of the Assumption to the office of the President. Honorable Speaker, on 11th May, the Honorable Member sought a statement pursuant to Order 44 regarding the appointment of the chairperson of the Assumption to the office of the President. The statement was subsequently committed to my committee for consideration and response. In particular, Honorable Speaker, the member sought to be informed on the steps taken to ensure that the leadership of the committee is put in place in time. Honorable Speaker, having considered the statement, I wish to respond as follows. By, firstly, through a letter, which is now a document before this House, by the head of civil service, Mr. Kinyua. It is noted the thrust of the letter of the request is to seek comprehensive response to the question of the chairperson of the Assumption of the office of the President Committee. In this regard, we set out the background to the matter as follows. 1. Article 141 of the Constitution provides for the assumption of office by the President-elect. Article 142, Sub-Article 1, provides that the swearing in of the President-elect shall be in public before the Chief Justice or, in his absence, the Deputy Chief Justice. The President-elect assumes office by taking and subscribing the oath of affirmation of allegiance and the oath of affirmation for the execution of the functions of office as prescribed in the third schedule to the Constitution. And Article 141, sub-Article 2, the President-elect shall be sworn in on the first Tuesday following A, the 14th day after the date of the declaration of result of the presidential election, if no petition has been filed to challenge that election, or B, the 7th day following the date on which the court renders a decision declaring the election to be valid, if any petition has been filed to challenge that election. Sub-Article 4 of that article provides that Parliament shall by registration provide for the procedure and ceremony for the swearing in of the President-elect. In this regard, Parliament enacted the Assumption of the Office of the President Act 2012. Under Section 5 of that Act, the Act established a committee. The committee consists of the following members. 1, the Secretary to the Cabinet, and that is the gist of the matter as the chair. B, the Attorney General. C, the Cabinet Secretary in charge of the registration of persons and immigration. D, the Principal Secretary to the Ministry responsible for matters relating to internal security. E, Principal Secretary, Ministry in charge of finance. F, the Principal Secretary, Ministry in charge of foreign affairs. G, the Principal Secretary, Ministry relating to information and communication. The Principal Secretary to the Ministry responsible for matters relating to constitutional affairs. Principal in the Ministry responsible to the Cabinet Office. I hope ranking member can, yes, instead of office. The Principal Secretary to the Ministry responsible for local government. The Principal Secretary in charge of culture. The Chief of the Kenya Defence Forces. The Director General of the National Intelligence Service. The Inspector General for National Police Service. The person in charge of the administration of the affairs of State House. The Clerk of the National Assembly. The Registrar of the Judiciary of R, very crucial here, and I shall allude to it again, 3 persons nominated by the President-elect. S, the Clerk of the Senate, and finally, Secretary to the Intergovernmental Relations Secretariat. Section 5, subsection 2 of that Act additionally indicates that the committee shall be ad hoc committee. And that section stipulates that the chairperson of the committee shall convene the first meeting of the committee. In view of the foregoing, it is my committee's considered opinion that since the committee is ad hoc and also features 3 persons nominated by the President-elect, the first meeting of the committee may be convened only after the general election and once there is a President-elect. Therefore, it is ad hoc. Our view is buttressed by the fact that the functions of the committee as outlined under Section 6 of the Act focus on the President-elect progression to assuming our nation's apex state office. According to that section, the committee shall A, facilitate the handing over process by the outgoing president to the President-elect. B, organize for the security of the President-elect. C, organize for the necessary facilities and personnel for the President-elect, D, coordinate the briefings of the President-elect by relevant public officers, facilitate communication between the outgoing President and the President-elect, prepare the program, and organize for the swearing-in ceremony, and carry out any other activity necessary for the performance of its functions under the Act, and perform any other function assigned to it under any other written law. We also note that the committee's chairperson is the Secretary to the Cabinet, and it is that person who convenes the inaugural meeting of the committee. However, at present, there is no substantive holder of that office to the Cabinet, Secretary to the Cabinet, and the head of the public service. Both, there is no substantive appointment under any law. Therefore, the head of public service has been serving as the acting secretary to the Cabinet. In that capacity, please don't ask, let me answer you. Don't keep on interrupting me. Please, Mr. Speaker, can you protect me from ranking member?
In
that capacity, he appears to know everything. So why do you ask then? Yes. In that capacity, the head of the public service has been discharging functions set out under Article 154 of the Constitution since September 2013 to date. I am marking that, underpinning that phrase, since September 2013. In that regard, and in recognition of the imperative of the constitutional authority vested in the office of the Secretary to the Cabinet, as set out under Article 154 of 154
Hold up.
Thank you. It is further notified that Section 43 of the interpretation, for the sake of the ranking member, Section 43 of the interpretation and general provisions provides that where there is, and I quote it extensively, where a written law confers a power or imposes a duty on the holder of an office as such, then unless a contrary intention appears, the power may be exercised and the duty shall be performed by the person for the time being holding that office. In the circumstances and in keeping with the precedent set out in the year 2017, following the 2017 general election and the subsequent repeat presidential election, the person who is currently performing the functions and the duties of the office of the Secretary to the Cabinet will dutifully and in fidelity to our Constitution and other laws of the Republic serve as the chairman of the committee. Mr. Honorable Speaker, additionally, my committee took time to add to what Mr. Kijo had done in this way. Honorable Speaker, the assumption of the office of President may only be convened after the general elections and declaration of results. This is because Section 5R of the Assumption of Office of the President Act, I shall refer to it as the Act, provides that 3 persons nominated by the President-elect to be part of that committee. Further, the head of civil service stated that he has been discharging the functions of the Secretary to the Cabinet from September 2013 to date, as there is no substantive holder of that office. This is premised on Article 259(3) and B of the Constitution, which provides as follows. Every provision of this Constitution shall be construed according to the doctrine of interpretation that the law is always speaking, and therefore, among others, A, a function or a power conferred by this Constitution on an office may be performed or exercised as occasion requires by the person holding the office. B, any reference in this Constitution to a state or other office, public office or officer, or a person holding such an office includes reference to the person acting in or otherwise performing the functions of the office at any particular time. Mr. Speaker, Section 43 of that Act, of the Interpretation and General Provisions Act, Cap 2, in our laws, provides, Section 43, where a written law confers a power or imposes a duty on the holder of an office as such, then unless a contrary intention appears, the power may be exercised and the duty shall be performed by the person for the time being holding that office. It is thus clear that the head of the public service, who is currently performing the functions and the duties of the office of the Secretary to the Cabinet, established under Article 154 of the Constitution, shall serve as the chairperson of the assumption of the office of the Presidential Committee to be established once the general election has been held and a president-elect declared. Honorable Speaker, the attention of the House is also drawn to Article 259, Sub-Article 1, which provides that the Constitution shall be interpreted in a manner that A, promotes its purposes, values, and principles. The purpose here, if I may pause, is to get a smooth transition to a president-elect. B, it is not who is administering that office. It is to get the president-elect smoothly take office. B, shall also be interpreted in a manner that advances the rule of law and the human rights and the fundamental freedoms of the Bill of Rights. C, permits the development of the law. And D, which is more important, I had pinned this, contributes to good governance. If there is no swearing in because of lack, formality of there not being a secretary or a chairperson, substantively appointed, then would that really be good governance? It will create some constitutional crisis unnecessarily. So you are beholden under the Constitution to ensure that you interpret every clause to contribute to good governance. The position taken by the head of civil service and therefore the government is proper and lawful and is buttressed by the premise of two constitutional law principles and doctrines. One, there is a doctrine called acquiescence, that the very person who transited the government in 2017, right, without any qualms, is now today, 5 years down the line, being questioned. Whoever, the ranking member, has been sitting on his rights for 5 years, and the occasion now arises, I am just putting this,
Let him finish. Let him
right,
finish.
without any qualms. Acquiescence works like the bands. Acquiescence works like the bands of marriage, right? Where in Christianity, Right? You are asked to raise a query. Since 2017, no query has been raised on this score. B, I am not saying it is right, but B, what is not specifically in law, another principle, what is not specifically forbidden? It is right, Mr. Speaker, that what is not forbidden by law is allowed. Whatever is not, the Constitution does not specifically outlaw in law, is a principle of law, is a principle of Constitution, that what is not prohibited is allowed. Mr. Speaker, finally, the House, if it deems it fit to do so, may amend the Assumption of Office of the President Act to provide for the person to act specifically to do so. Thank you very much.
The question, the statement, the request was made by the Honorable Duale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's a very, very sad moment that the chair of JLAC, a lawyer of many years, went through a lot of pains, and I really understand him. After even going through those nominations, a lot of pains to answer my statement. Mr. Speaker, and Mr. Speaker, I really want you to help us as a leader of the legislature. And I'm sure you are in the 9th Parliament. When ministers bring fake answers, the Speaker used to tell them, take away. Mr. Speaker, and I want him to listen to me. I have asked, and the two wrongs don't make a right, Mr. Speaker. I have asked, number one, why there is the absence of the position of secretary to the cabinet as provided for in Article 154 of the Constitution. That this country needs a secretary to the cabinet who takes minutes and his functions are well documented. And Mr. Speaker, if you allow me, the functions of the secretary to the cabinet, among other things, is have in charge of the cabinet office, be responsible, subject to the direction of the cabinet, for arranging business and keeping minutes of the cabinet, convey the decision of the cabinet to the appropriate persons or authorities, have the functions as directed by the cabinet, and the secretary to the cabinet may resign from office. Mr. Speaker, you included, myself included as a member for township, Garissa Township, we took an oath to defend this Constitution. And Mr. Speaker, the Constitution in Article 2 says, the Constitution is the supreme law of the Republic and binds all persons and state organs at all levels of government. No person, that is number 2, may claim or exercise state authority except as authorized under this Constitution. Mr. Speaker, it's section Article 2 of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, this House, in its wisdom, when the new Constitution was being enacted, was under obligation to legislate an act of Parliament called the Assumption of Office to the President. Mr. Speaker, this assumption of office to the President is a very critical organ, and that is why the law was passed by this House in 2012. What was the objective, the spirit, and the purpose of that act? Mr. Speaker, it was that during elections, after all processes, including going to court, the moment we have a president-elect, Mr. Speaker, a committee called Assumption of Office is created by law. Mr. Speaker, the chairman read the membership. I have no problem with the membership. The membership includes the 2 clerks of the House. The membership includes a number of principal secretaries. The membership includes the chief of the defense forces. The membership includes the Inspector General of Police. The membership includes the Director General of the National Intelligence Service.
Now,
Mr. Speaker, the chairman.
Now, Honorable Dwele, I'll interrupt you. Other members, those who, the member for Kitutu Church North, I'm sure he wants to rest a bit. And this one who has his back to me, the member for Ugenya. Now, honourable members, I've interrupted the Honourable Dwele because there's some, I don't know whether all of you are in possession of a supplementary order paper. This has been necessitated by the need to be able to put the question on the consideration of the budget estimates for the financial year 2022-2023, whose general debate happened this morning and was concluded. And what remained is for the question to be put, which will then unlock the other processes of supply. So I interrupt the Honourable Dwele to just interpose briefly between order number 7, second segment, and order number 8, so that we can clear this one. Call out.
Order number 8, motion, consideration of the budget estimates for the financial year 2022-2023.
Member for KU South. I know members who like going through the rear part. Please, let's have a few minutes. Honour members, I wish to put the question, which is that this House adopts the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the budget estimates for the national government, the judiciary, and Parliament for the financial year 2020-2023, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, May 24, 2022, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 221 of the Constitution, Section 39 of the Public Finance Management Act of 2012, and Standing Order 239, A, approves the issuance of a sum of Kenya shillings 2,103,838,811,446 from the consolidated fund to meet the expenditure during the year ending 30th June 2023 in respect to the votes contained in the first schedule to the order paper, subject to paragraph C, which is Committee of Supply. B, makes a policy and financial resolutions contained in the second schedule to the order paper. And C, orders that the Speaker do now leave the chair to facilitate the consideration of the said budget estimates with respect to each vote and program in the Committee of Supply as contemplated under Standing Order number 240, which is consideration of estimates in the Committee of Supply. Will as many as without opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as were contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Very well. That paves the way for us to proceed then to Committee of Supply at the appropriate time when debate on the finance bill is concluded, if it is concluded today. Debate on the finance bill also commenced in the morning, and if you conclude it, then you can move on to supply. I believe at the tail end of the 12th Parliament, nobody will be asking whether we are supplying water or oxygen. You know what this should be. Look at Standing Order 240. Very well, we go back to Honorable Duale, who interrupted you. But you are to seek clarification on the issues raised by the chair of JLAC.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, because you'll help me, because the old lawyer has raised the experienced lawyer has raised issues. The Speaker, I want you to listen to me. Article 2 of the Constitution says the Constitution is the supreme law of the Republic and binds all persons and all state organs at both levels of government. Mr. Speaker, if you go to Article 154, and my problem is Article 154. Mr. Speaker, please help me. I have a problem. Every time there's a serious issue in this House, people are like running to, you are the leader of majority. I was not the head of the executive. I was not a member of the cabinet. I was the member for Garissa Township. The Speaker, Article 154.
Honor members.
Just leave them. These are the normal noisemakers.
Honor members, let's listen to each other. Then you can, I'm sure you will eloquently be able to prosecute that part.
Absolutely. So, Mr. Speaker, Article 154 of the Constitution says there is established office of the Secretary to the Cabinet, which is an office in the public service. Article 154, Mr. Speaker, is not saying head of public service. It's not saying the President's private secretary. It's not saying the Minister for Interior. It says, subtitle, Secretary to the Cabinet. So, Speaker, this House passed the Assumption of Office of President Act 2012, Section 5 and Section 6, Mr. Speaker, clearly, as an Act of Parliament, stipulates who are the members of that Assumption of Office. That when the President-elect goes through all the judicial processes, in the event there's a presidential dispute, there are certain functions that that committee does before the swearing in, giving that President-elect intelligence brief, security, working with the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary and the Chief of Defense Forces, who are the owners of the day when the President-elect is to be sworn in. The Speaker, in Section 6, it says clearly, unless amended by this House, that the chair to that committee is the Secretary to the, shall be the Secretary to the Cabinet. Mr. Speaker, since 2013, when this House rejected the nominee for Secretary to the Cabinet, no substantive person has been appointed. Mr. Speaker, we are 73 days to the general election. We have a president and a government in ministers who are participating in the succession politics. Mr. Speaker, we want a fair membership led by the chair as stipulated in the Constitution and in the Assumption of Office Act. We want and most of Mr. Speaker, the current president is existing. This is a transitional election. So, Mr. Speaker, the answer given to this House, and you know the letter was written to you, and you have looked at it, and you are a seasoned lawyer. Mr. Speaker, this answer is unsatisfactory. The head of public service is not and cannot, is a man I respect a lot, Honorable Joseph Kinyua. He is not and he cannot purport, and he doesn't have the constitutional backing to act as the Secretary of Cabinet and becomes the chair of the Assumption of Office. Mr. Speaker, I have read that letter, and that letter places the discharge of a constitutional duty to a person appointed by the President, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the function, your office as the Speaker of the National Assembly is a constitutional function and duty. The leader of a political party cannot say even that I have appointed so-and-so to be the Speaker of the National Assembly. So, Mr. Speaker, this letter that has been tabled before this House places the discharge of a constitutional duty within the reading of Article 154 and the Assumption of Office Act, Section 5 and 6, to a person appointed by the President. And if we follow, let's example, because this is a president who has violated with impunity the rule of law, then there is no need to have cabinet ministers in this country. The President can even appoint his county commissioners to act as the Minister for Interior, his county commissioner to act as the Minister for Finance. If the President can decide to appoint any Tom, Dick, and Harry to a constitutional office and duty, like the Secretary to the Cabinet, to any person, then, Mr. Speaker, I want you to guide this House that this answer violates the oath of office that we have taken. It is even fair just to say, what did we ask? We asked the President, I have asked the President, Mr. President, I have worked with you, this is illegal, send a name, this House should approve it before we go on recess, so that that person becomes the Secretary of the Cabinet, he takes minutes, and he becomes the chair of the Assumption Office, because Kenyans are stakeholders in the transition. So, Mr. Speaker, these issues have not been canvassed, and it's illegal, and Mr. Speaker, it is not whether it was 2013 or 2014. The head of public service cannot replace Article 154 of the Constitution that establishes the Secretary to the Cabinet.
No, this one you can seek some clarification. Yes, proceed.
Pinya. Okay. Mr. Speaker, who is supposed to appoint the Secretary of the Cabinet? Who is supposed to appoint? And two, how come that the last 9 years, I could not remember that that person is supposed to be appointed since 2013? How come we could not remember? Maybe even the person who took over from him has also forgotten to seek that.
Very well. Honorable Jimmy Angwenyi is seeking clarification, and it is good, but as to the issue of memory loss, if at all, I may not be of assistance. But as to the first question, you asked who is supposed to appoint the Secretary to the Cabinet. Article 154, Clause 2, Paragraph A, provides 2, the Secretary to the Cabinet shall be nominated by the President, and with the approval of the National Assembly, appointed by the President. Well, since September, when you as a House rejected one nominee, Dr. Monica Juma, that is what is in that document which the Honorable Muturi Kegano has tabled. There has not been, not even substantive. The Constitution does not contemplate a situation of anything other than substantive. There has not been a Secretary to the Cabinet. And therefore, if anybody has been writing letters purporting to be such officer who has not been approved by this House, then that communication is null and void for intended purposes. In fact, that does not even lend, this position does not even lend itself to interpretation under Section 43 of the Interpretation of General Provisions Act, because that deals with other written laws, not what is in the Constitution. The Constitution is superior to Cap 2. So indeed, it is not possible that another person can assume, just walk into some meeting and say, I am now acting as Secretary to the Cabinet. You will have to have passed through here, through nomination by the President, approval by this House, and then finally appointed by the President. So about the memory loss, I may not address that. Maybe you can discuss that with the Honorable Duale. But this other one, I think it's fair to. No, as to the Honorable Angwenya asked whether Honorable Duale has forgotten for the last 9 years. That I think the Honorable Duale can answer. But you purported also to indicate that the Honorable Kimunya might have inherited also memory loss. The Honorable Jimmy Angwenya said that even his successor appears to have also lost the memory. So the Honorable Kimunya is telling you that he has not forgotten. The Honorable Wangwe, you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I wish to walk in your footsteps of guidance the way you've done. But Honorable Speaker, I wish maybe to find out from Honorable Duale. He wants to come out of not having been of help to the President. At the same time, Honorable Speaker, he is saying the President has been his friend and he has been advising him. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, my take to this, Honorable Speaker.
Allow the Honorable Wangwe to make his point.
My take, Honorable Speaker, is in line with Article 108, which is the only article that, Honorable Speaker, establishes the office of the Majority Leader. And Honorable Speaker, Honorable Duale having been nominated through the same party. And Honorable Speaker, the article explicitly talks about. Let me finish, Honorable Duale. The article, Honorable Speaker, allowing him to be the leader of the majority party in the House, Honorable Speaker, is in order, therefore, Honorable Speaker, to deviate and say he cannot associate himself that now the President did not nominate the Secretary of the Cabinet for the last 9 years. Is in order, Honorable Speaker, to run away from his responsibility when he was in the office, Honorable Speaker.
I think we are going to lose. We are going to lose this matter. This is seeking clarification. You should be seeking clarification from the Honorable Muturi Kegano, because it is easier. It is easier for him to clarify. For instance, whether Section 43 of the Interpretation of General Provisions Act supersedes Article 2 as run together with Article 154 2A. Would Section 43, for instance, and I think these are the questions, these are the issues. I want to remember, let's not do other business which is not here in the House. This is a very serious matter. And I think, what's your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, by being a friend to the President does not qualify me to carry the constitutional role of the President of sending a nominee to the Secretary to the Cabinet. And Honorable Wangaman, I respect a lot. Do not, become pedestrian. The House is discussing a serious breach of Constitution. This can be a ground even for removal of an impeachment of a President. So I am Aden Duale. I was the leader of majority. I was not sworn in Kasarani, Mr. Speaker. I was sworn in this House as a member of Garissa.
Well, I see the leader of majority. Of course, no. Please. Have you suddenly forgotten the provisions of Article 108? He has precedence over all of you. So when he indicates that he wants to say, yes, please.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I've listened very carefully, and now that we are looking at Article 154, I would want, as the chair of JLAC is responding, to perhaps also consider taking this into account. One, there was a substantive secretary to the cabinet who was appointed in 2013, and that was Francis Kimemia. And if I look at 154, basically it says they established the office of secretary to the cabinet, and he shall be nominated, and with the approval of the National Assembly, appointed by the president, and may be dismissed. And then it also describes basically what the functions of the secretary are. And at number 4, 155.4, it says the secretary to the cabinet may resign from office by giving notice in writing to the president. Now, Article 154 is totally silent on the filling of a vacancy created by resignation of a secretary to the cabinet. And I want the chair of JLAC perhaps to guide us on that, because where you have a secretary appointed and then he resigns, the only choice the appointing authority has is to designate somebody to act until a nomination is done. Because it's not provided in a constitution what happens after they resign. That's what I want the chair to consider and guide this house. Even as we are looking at this constitution as a living document, and to, for purposes of getting to see where we are going. Honorable Speaker, assuming we had a secretary to the cabinet today who has gone through the 154 2A, and that secretary resigns on the 10th of June, after this house has taken the Synod recess, there will be no parliament to approve that parliament. So we need to look at those circumstances that can happen. Because, and in that kind of situation, how would we resolve that constitutional situation except for the purposes of the assumption of office? I would not imagine somebody dying. So I'm not that evil to wish people death.
Let's listen to the leader of the majority party.
Yes. So we need to look at those, that there are so many situations that may not have been anticipated in this constitution, but they could occur. We could actually have a person properly nominated, sitting as secretary of cabinet, waiting to, or even having started to do the business of chairman of the assumption of office committee, and then resigns just before the election or when there's no parliament to approve a new one. In that case, who would actually conduct the function of chairman of that except a person in an acting capacity? So there's nothing illegal, there's nothing wrong with having an acting person until this house has completed its role of approving a nominee. Until the president has nominated, until the president has nominated, whoever is there must continue acting, because that's what is anticipated within the Interpretation and General and General Provisions Act, which I believe is what says that if one office is, if the occupant of that office is not there, the person acting shall hold the full powers. Mr. Speaker, we have elected one speaker and one deputy speaker. When you're not on the chair, and when you're not on the Honorable Deputy Speaker is not on the chair, and the first chair of the Speaker's panel is on the chair, the House is able to conduct the business of this House in totality, without having to say that they were not elected by the members because they were, in the same way as the Speaker or Deputy Speaker as provided in the Constitution. So I think, even as we are talking, I wanted to Chair Ujelak to look at all those things and guide us, because as far as we are concerned, we could be causing unnecessary panic, not just to Kenyans, but even on a global basis. Right now, everyone is worried, is Kenya going to hold elections? Is Kenya going to hold some credible elections? Are we going to have tensions? It doesn't help that we are also working in a situation where there's global turmoils. All currencies are crashing against the dollar. We are going to be affected as well. Investors are moving their monies from where they feel there's safety. And I'm not digressing. I'm saying any utterances we make here, any issues, any statements we make from the floor of this House, we are not just talking to ourselves here. We are not talking interfaction. We are also talking to the world. And downgrading the preparedness of Kenya to hold a credible election by the 9th. No, but obviously, every member is at liberty, but I would urge that we don't cast any doubts about our preparedness to hold a peaceful and credible general election, and an assumption of office that whoever is elected will assume office in exactly the same way as His Excellency Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, who was elected together with his deputy, His Excellency William Samoei Ruto, and the pair were able to take office in 2013 through a committee that was chaired by the acting secretary to the cabinet. And nobody has ever challenged that election. And unless we are saying that the pair has been in office illegally, in which case all of us may have been in office illegally. So it's some of these things that we probably need to let's not split hairs, because we could open up a Pandora's box that we will be unable to close. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to just ask that we restrain ourselves and take it for granted that we have only 3 weeks. It's impractical to actually go through a vetting process, public participation, to actually get somebody elected. It doesn't matter whether it's me or Honorable Duale. Even if you're elected today, chances are we will not be able to do the public participation, nominated today. House will not be able to process that and report and do everything. Yeah? Because of the time. And in any case, like I said, and in any case, the issue is, if we want to get the place, what is the role of at what point does an acting person become illegal, right? Because their role will only finish when a substantive person is nominated. But until that nomination is taken, whoever is appointed to act continues to act until the nominating body nominates another person. That is my position, and I believe the person acting as head of, as secretary to the cabinet is actually rightfully in office in accordance with the law.
Sorry, honourable members, because sorry, let me just tell you how to proceed. Don't bother raising your hand up. I'll give each one, but let me follow the way you have made your request. Because because some of you have just walked in, because you want to raise your hand up, you don't know. I will follow the requests. So please just let me follow this screen here. I know you know very well that I know. Honorable Chieng, you know that. Surely, you know. I normally follow that. So please, let me just follow this, and I know who is the next. Member for Yatta. Member for Yatta. You're step next.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to give the way forward. I think only yesterday or last week, you did give a ruling that because of the remaining time before this House goes to election, the business which shall take priority is business by leader majority and or minority. Now, the question which Duale has brought, in as valid as it is, the way forward probably for Honorable Duale is maybe ask for a motion and let the House debate, Mr. Speaker. You see, Mr. Speaker, even when Duale has a good idea, because of his past, Mr. Speaker, this House never takes him seriously, Mr. Speaker. Yes. And that is a reality. Yes. I wish Honorable Duale would have given that matter, even somebody within his political side, that matter, Mr. Speaker, would have been addressed in a non-partisan manner, Mr. Speaker. But when we remember Duale's past, Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, whatever serious business he brings, it will never be addressed.
Yes. Now, honour members, I know the problem is Honourable Kilonzo. I thought you had a good way of choosing words. When you say somebody is past, that when you say past, is you insinuate, you know.
The Speaker, Honourable Charles Kilonzo said, Honourable Charles Kilonzo said, because of my past. His father has some past. I want him to define my past. His father has a past history. You know, your father, I have not killed a Kenyan. I have not been, there are no allegations. Can he say my past? Don't say my past, you idiot.
Now, this opportunity is to seek clarifications, because I will still give the chair of JLAC a chance to respond. Honorable Pukose.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to seek clarification from the Chair of Justice and Legal Affairs, considering that Article 154 provides that there shall be a secretary to the cabinet. Now we've been having meetings which are supposed, the person supposed to have been taking minutes of the cabinet is supposed to have been the secretary to the cabinet. And then we are going to have assumption of office, which is supposed to be chaired by the secretary to the cabinet as the chair. That is taking into consideration the Assumption of Office Act 2012. Should there be no chair? Should there be somebody else? Because the head of the public service has been acting, which we think it is contrary to the Constitution. Should there be anybody else acting in that capacity? Can this be a basis for a petition for a presidential election? And how fair can this, considering that even the current cabinet secretaries have not been neutral in as far as politics are concerned? We've seen cabinet secretaries taking sides and campaigning for even individuals. How trustworthy can we be that the committee that is going to be formed will be neutral and stick to the Constitution of Kenya? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Nyikal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not a lawyer, but I think the point that is being discussed is extremely important for this country. And actually, we should try as much as possible to the political advantage or disadvantages that it's given us should be put aside. What Honorable Duale has raised is extremely important because of what he is anticipating. He says we are going to have an election, there's going to be need for this committee of assumption. That is extremely important. The Honorable Chair actually raised issues, and you have raised it. One, that what is not prohibited is allowed, and he quoted some law of interpretation. Again, he raised another issue that a person acting in a certain capacity, if it is allowed to act, then has responsibility over functions in that capacity. Mr. Speaker, it does appear to me that legal minds here, those are the areas to look at and see, are those areas that can actually drive us forward and find a meaningful solution to the situation we have at heart. So to me, I think we should then, all of us, not just one side, look at what needs to be done to have this thing resolved. Remember, if we have a stalemate after or during the election, it is not only one part that suffers, the whole country suffers. And at this point, it's not known who is going to win. So this thing is actually a problem for everybody. So I think political sides being taken is not wisdom. But one thing we have learned here, Mr. Speaker, is that when you are in a position when you can do something, if that thing is wrong, don't wait and you think at that time you are perhaps in good books with the people who should be doing it. Do not wait until time passes, because it then removes the moral strength you have to do that. And I'm being very straightforward that it's not possible that it is only in the last few days that Honorable Budwale realized that this position was empty. He was in an extremely important position to raise this matter in the most practical way for the most important people. He didn't. I don't blame him for that. I just say it's a lesson for us all, but he has raised an important point. And I think the way you are guiding is probably the way we should go forward and find a solution. That's my suggestion, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, we remove any form of emotions. Article 2 of the Constitution is, the title is Supremacy of the Constitution. Clause 2 of that Article 2 reads as follows: no person may claim or exercise state authority except as authorized under this Constitution. I think I don't know what other debate what other debate is this we are trying to. The Constitution, supremacy of the Constitution, and the same Constitution says you may not claim to exercise any state authority except as authorized. So there's no question of, you see, obviously the lawyers will know, are very familiar with the expression, expressio ulterius ust exclusio ulterius. To say one thing to the total exclusion, is that not so, the Honorable Chieng? Now, this Constitution, in Article 2, says it is supreme. And any other law that may be inconsistent with it is null and void to the extent of that inconsistency. So I don't know whether do we still have a lot of cobwebs in our. Well, again, let me follow. I'll follow this request, but please seek clarifications from the chair of JLAC. Please let us just to remain civil. I like the way the Honorable Dr. Nyikal has prosecuted his point of view. Honorable Raso.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also want to add my voice to this particular feedback from Chairman JLAC. I think, as you have said, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. No other law can be enacted or enforced that is not consistent with this Constitution. Honorable Speaker, we are not here as legislators to apologize for the executive. I think in this particular instance, the executive have slept on the job, and we are trying to buttress and also try to give reasons why the executive failed. I think we are not here for that reason. Like you have rightly said, we have to be sober to this. From my experience, in 1982, there was that attempted coup of August 1982. And we were able to secure the borders, including the airport. Among the people who are trying to run away with their suitcases, with money and families, were members of parliament and ministers. So, to actually guard against that, any member can stand in his place in this house to raise a matter of concern to the people under Article 95. And there's absolutely nothing wrong. What Honorable Duale is actually telling this house, I see there is a lacuna. There is an election. The president who is in office is leaving. Anybody could be elected. What arrangements are in place for succession of that leadership? I think it's not asking for too much. Today, the two front runners, His Excellency William Ruto and His Excellency Raila Odinga, should be getting some briefs, because any of them can be the president of Kenya come August. But that is not happening. And we also know who is the front runner. I don't have to say that. So for that reason, Honorable Speaker, understanding Order 1, if something really is not going right, I think it's the high time for you even to sit with the leadership of the House to see that there'll be no crisis in Kenya come August. Article 154 clearly says about the Secretary to the Cabinet. Reading that article, that is an institution. There's a book that is available out there called Why Nations Fail. And one of the reasons why nations fail, including such as ours, is failing to respect institutions and to make sure that the institution work for the betterment of the people of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, with those, what we want to hear from JLAC is not assurance, but in black and white.
Honourable members, why? Please, put your phones on silent mode. Just please put your phones on silent. I'm sure the rest you can enjoy when you get the moment you step out. Very well. You are concluding, please. Do it quickly. Now we need to go to business.
I'm concluding, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, the feedback we want from the Chairman JLAC is what arrangement is in place for succession. We don't want the Trump. America is a first world democracy. It's a country we all copy. But there was about to be crisis in America because Trump refused to hand over. So the Constitution must protect the people of Kenya. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Chieng.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would seek a clarification, even as I also just add my voice to this, and also say that the issue on the floor, Mr. Speaker, is not any sided issue. It's a great issue of concern, in my opinion. In 2014, Mr. Speaker, you're on the chair you're sitting on today. And I'm not afraid to say, I raised this issue of appointment of the secretary to the cabinet. But the then leader of majority told me that is an urgent matter. In fact, I even got calls from very higher quarters. Why are you asking these issues that are not very important at this point in time? The Speaker, this is not a thing I'm making up. You can check it on the answer. I raised a question on this floor about why the president had not appointed the secretary to the cabinet. 2014, So, and of course, we know who was leading the at that time, Mr. Speaker. Now, where we are today, Mr. Speaker, the issue is not who is right or who is wrong. The issue is, Mr. Speaker, and as was raised by the person who raised the statement, is, are we following the law? Because one right, one wrong, two wrongs do not make a right, Mr. Speaker. Are we following the law? I want to say, without any fear of doubt, that the president in this instance has blatantly failed to follow the law. That's the truth. And so we have to probate and reprobate the Speaker, because the president failed to follow the law. What we are dealing with now, Mr. Speaker, is whether arrangements are there to ensure that, one, the assumption of office by the incoming president goes on as contemplated under Article 141, Mr. Speaker. I think that's what we're looking at now. We cannot possibly hope that the president will appoint a new secretary to the cabinet tomorrow or in these 3 weeks. So the issue that the chair of the committee should...
Member for Kiharu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I'll seek clarification from the chair of JLAC on where in the Constitution or any written law gives the head of public service the role to act as the head of public service in case the head of public service office is not filled. Two, Mr. Speaker, I've heard the argument about, and especially from the chair, that in the law what is not prohibited expressly is therefore permitted. Mr. Speaker, I am seeking clarification from the member, because he's member of parliament for Kagema. Does that mean then that his roles can be taken over by the CDF chair in case he's not there to undertake those roles, Mr. Chair, because that is not expressly prohibited by the law. Also, the argument from Honorable Kemunya, the leader of majority, that Mr. Francis Kimemia was appointed then to be the secretary of the cabinet. If you are talking about acting, then the person who should be acting is therefore actually Kimemia himself, not the current person who is purporting to act, because he was then the substantive, and because both anyway are serving in the public sector or in government. Mr. Speaker, we need to take this matter very seriously, and especially when we have a president who is totally sided and conflicted and has a project, Mr. Speaker, when we have an election this year. And especially also when members of the Assumption Committee, some of the very serious members, like the PS for Interior, is totally out there campaigning for the project of the president who is actually supposed to have appointed the secretary to the cabinet. And lastly, the
member for Emurwa Dikil.
Thank you, Speaker. I also wanted to get this clarification, Speaker. Number one is a question which you have even asked yourself. Is the secretary to the cabinet in office? Is he in office? If not, Mr. Speaker, who is acting in that office? And through what process that he has been made to act in that office? Mr. Speaker, number two, can the president appoint anybody to just act in that office? Which powers has the president or the president has to appoint anybody just to act in that office? Number three, Mr. Speaker, can anyone sit in that committee, that committee we are talking about, Mr. Speaker, using the name of acting as a secretary to the cabinet and act as a cabinet secretary to the cabinet? Mr. Speaker, I want us to read Article 154, which of course is talking about the cabinet secretary. In reply to the question Honorable Kimunya said, that anybody can act. Mr. Speaker, Article 156 is talking about the Attorney General. Suppose the Attorney General die. Can the President appoint anybody, including even Kimunya, to act as Attorney General and discharge his duties as the Attorney General? Article 157, Mr. Speaker, talks about the DPP. If the DPP resign today, can the President appoint even the Speaker of this House to act as DPP and discharge the duties of a DPP? So, Mr. Speaker, I think that one you have to give us proper clarification, and the chairman for JLAC should give us clear answers. who is supposed to be sitting in that office. Whether we have 2 days or 3 days to election, we need to know who is going to occupy that office and act or discharge duties as a secretary to the cabinet. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Nyando.
I thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I remember the Chief Justice Emeritus, Mutunga, did say that our constitution should be progressive when he was addressing the issue of gender. And he said we should be having an incremental view each and every electoral cycle, that one day we shall get there. And I think it cuts across all the constitutional requirements, Honorable Speaker. We are looking at Article 152 about the composition of cabinet, which is the President, the Deputy, the Attorney General, and not less than 14 and not more than 22 members of the Cabinet Secretaries, Honorable Speaker. And Article 154 specifically talks about the Secretary to the Cabinet, the roles and functions of that office, and subsection or subarticle 4 talks about the vacancy in that office, Honorable Speaker. But going back to Article 152 talks about the President's power to reassign responsibilities to the Cabinet, Honorable Speaker. So we may have had a vacancy in this office, but I don't think anything stops the President from reassigning anybody that opportunity to serve within that office. And all of us are in agreement here that the roles of that office have continued to be exercised to this very day. I do not think there is a lacuna in terms of discharge of responsibilities in that office, Honorable Speaker. But again, finally, I think there was a proposal here some times back of a name by Monica Juma, who was brought before this House, but who was rejected by this same House that is now claiming that this office has been vacant for way too long, Honorable Speaker. So,
Member for Kikuyu.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, allow me to just reiterate what the Honorable Nyikal has said, that as much as we want to point fingers at each other, at the end of the day, we should look at what is in the best interest of the country. And Honorable Speaker, I only wish that the Honorable Nyikal would, in a way, advise the current leader of majority and the chair of JLAC to indeed advise the President that what is provided for in the Constitution in Article 2 and Article 154 is so clear, Mr. Speaker, that the provisions of the General Provisions, the Interpretation and General Provisions Act, the Section 43, Honorable Speaker, that was quoted in the letter that the JLAC chair has read. Honorable Chair, if you allow me, that section provides that where a written law confers a power or imposes a duty on the holder of an office as such, then unless a contrary intention appears, the power may be exercised and the duty shall be performed by the person for the time being holding that office. And therefore, the clarification then the chair would seek to get or to give us, who for the time being, what person for the time being is holding the office of the Secretary to the Cabinet. Because in reality, Honorable Speaker, nobody is holding that office. And unless there was a deputy to that secretary who then would be exercising that power, then we would use that Section 43 of the General Provisions. But otherwise, Honorable Chair, I think the point is that the provisions of Article 2 of the Constitution, that the people, Article 2 of the Constitution, that no person may claim or exercise state authority except as authorized under this Constitution. And I think the provisions of Article 154 are quite clear that the powers of that committee can only be exercised by the Secretary to the Cabinet.
Member for Suba North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I actually want to take a totally different approach. Mr. Speaker, this is not the first time this matter has come before this House. And for us to be serious as a House, we need to make a decision and move forward. Some of those issues are very factual issues. Whether the holder of the office is there or not is a factual issue. The issues in the Constitution are also factual issues. So it doesn't matter whether we speak for or against. Mr. Speaker, they are either legal or factual issues. So we can talk until the cows come home, but there still be factual legal issues. What I would want to request, Honorable Speaker, as the person who guides this House, give you a direction and let us move on with life. Because we have spent almost 1 hour yesterday, I think we spent 2 hours, I don't know, every day this issue comes here, like we cannot make a decision on a very simple matter such as this. Really, as far as I'm concerned, and I want to be very simplistic, I don't want to speak as a lawyer, but from where I sit, I don't care whether we have a sweeper to the cabinet. I don't care whether it is a cleaner of the toilet to the cabinet, secretary to the cabinet. Let us deal with it and move to the budget. Every member here have very serious concerns about their constituencies that will be sorted when we deal with the budget and the finance bill. I request, Mr. Speaker, that you direct us so that we get into serious business. Thank you.
Let's just hear from, let's just, oh gosh. Well, let me hear from the first chair of the Speaker's panel, the Honorable Soipan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me a chance to add my voice to this issue. Honorable Speaker, the provisions of Article 154 of the Constitution are very clear. And of curious concern, Mr. Speaker, is the kind of defensiveness that some quarters are adopting to the issue, Mr. Speaker. It's a constitutional issue, very clear, Mr. Speaker. In fact, if somebody had forgotten about the specific provision, and it is not a trivial matter, Mr. Speaker, because it addresses the very, very crucial Committee on Assumption of Office, Mr. Speaker. And I think the Leader of Majority should have adopted this as an aha moment, because he is being pointed to a very glaring lacuna that we are faced with, Mr. Speaker, as we go into the general elections in a few days. And Mr. Speaker, we should not be seeing defensiveness and, they don't make it look like there's a sinister motive to the fact that there's a vacancy in the office of Cabinet Secretary to the Cabinet. Mr. Speaker, I think this is an issue we cannot dodge. We should face it, Mr. Speaker. It is a crucial issue, and we should just move and face it, Mr. Speaker, and the President should move with lightning speed, unless there is a sinister motive to it, Mr. Speaker, to prosecute the matter and have a Secretary to the Cabinet in place. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Muturi Kigano.
I wish to thank members for their contributions. Even if there are divergent views, I still encourage them. When you define law and when you define certain opinions, you all get 100%, whether your argument was wrong or mine, so long as you develop some argument and do it in good faith. Mr. Speaker, as much as Article 2 is couched in imperative terms, so equally 259 is also imperative. It has got a caption construing this constitution. And that is the article that permits an officer to act, the head of service, to act in the absence of a substantive holder of that office. It is not in conflict. The two articles are not in conflict. One is talking about the supremacy, the other one is talking about construing even that supremacy, right? When you come to construction and interpretation of Article 2, you go to 259, right? So they are not mutually exclusive, they are inclusive. So the head of civil service, again, I reiterate that he is the acting secretary, and therefore the holder of the office of chairman of the assumption of office. Again, let me say this. The Section 43 of the Interpretation Act of Cap 2 is not conflicting with the Constitution, because when I cite it in reference to the Assumption of Office Act, because the chairman is not created by the Constitution directly. He is created by an act of parliament, the Assumption of Office. So in interpreting that act, right, you resort to Cap 2, 43. That is how 43 comes to my assistance in saying, in buttressing that the acting person has authority to do what the substantive holder would have done. The examples given by Honorables Ngeno, Nyolo, they are fallacious in a way, with a lot of respect. They are fancy and fallacious, because straight away I said what is permitted by law is what is permitted by law. What is not prohibited is allowed. But for you to act as a DPP, you must comply with the act that appoints the DPP. If you want to be a member of parliament, you must go under the Elections Act, right? So there is a law that prohibits in person not to act. So equally, there is a law that tells you not Pukose, not the ranking member, not Pukose, not the ranking member will become Chief Justice. Where the law, Mr. Speaker, where the law wants to prohibit a pretender not to act, right? It says so in his own terms. Take, for example, the swearing in of the president-elect. It says clearly, the Chief Justice, or in his absence, the deputy. It doesn't bring any other person. It says, if you are not here, so-and-so act. You cannot take it as an example or a parallel. In the case of the secretary and other officers in the cabinet, it doesn't say specifically who shall act. It leaves it open. And therefore, the head of civil service has authority to act. Equally, you cannot sleep on your rights. You cannot approve and disapprove. This House has set on the absence, the fact that there is no substantive holder, occupier of the office of secretary. Since 2013, when Kimemia, that is 10 years. Right now, what is the agency that has promoted? He is legal. Yes. Yeah, because maybe they are panicking that a man may not become president. But I don't want to injure. Let me say respectfully, I have not asked Duare to come in my aid and ask me. I have not asked you. Well, that is why you show why you are not a deputy president. That's why you are not nominated. The same length. So. For the wisdom,
please, just address,
Mr. Speaker, for the assistance of these hecklers were they are demonstrating how they run the government in heckling. These hecklers, please await. Mr. Speaker, please tell all these speakers that their president is not in power. They can heckle when your president comes to power. For now, there is a severalized government, there is a severalized speaker, so please wait until you have your corrupt speaker, corrupt deputy president, then you can talk.
No.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I have not asked Chongwa or anybody to come to be nominated to assist me, assist your party. I am not complete. That is why I don't want to be nominated, because I'm old. That's why I don't. You young person, be nominated.
No, honourable members. I think the Honourable Muturi Kigano has finished.
Mr. Speaker, in the circumstances of these hecklers, I don't think they want to hear, they don't want to reason, they don't want to hear any reasons. So there is nothing that I can usefully, I cannot usefully add any other material to what is on paper. What I stated is the hazard, and the letter in reply to the statement by the acting secretary to the cabinet. Well, I am old. I don't want to be nominated. Yes.
Now, okay. Well, we put that matter to rest. That in any event, it was a request for statements which has been issued. So the Honourable Muturi Kigano has discharged his obligation and our standing orders. You don't have to agree with him, but he has discharged his obligation. So we move on. Now, honourable members, order members, order. Maybe you could take some seat even near there. Honour members, it's an issue that arose yesterday, and the Honourable Waluke, is Honourable Waluke in the house? I saw him make his way in, right at the corner there. He came in and walked out. Now, the Honourable Waluke indicated that he was going to substantiate a matter. Or is it regard to his being jailed for 74 years? I think the Honourable Waluke, having claimed that the Public Investments Committee is very corrupt, he was challenged to substantiate that, and they promised to do so. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, tomorrow afternoon. This is indicated. He indicated that he was going to substantiate this too. No, I think the Honourable Waluke should take this matter seriously, because he alleged our whole committee, and he was challenged and he insisted, and he was complaining that in this country nobody has even been jailed for 10 years. How could he be jailed for 74 years? I don't know. How is the committee involved in his? The committee doesn't. The committee is not. It's not the bench. Anyhow, the Honourable Waluke will have to substantiate this matter. Otherwise, he has to withdraw this. It's not good for the record of the House. But I'm seeing him make his way here. No, we move to next order.
Order number 9.
No, let's not go to that one. It's going to create problems.
Order number 9, special motion, report on the vetting of nominees for appointment as ambassadors, high commissioners, and permanent representatives.
The chairman, Defense and Foreign Relations, Honorable Tongi.
Don't read all
Just say their names. We will pass them on.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that pursuant to Article 132, number 2E of it, of the Constitution, Section 20, subsection 2 of the Foreign Service Act, number 12 of 2021, Section 3 and 8 of the Public Appointment, the committee recommends that this House approves the following names of persons as ambassadors, high commissioners, and permanent representatives. Clement Nzomo Kitema, Station Angola; Mary Muwancha, Australia; Professor Vitange Ndemo, Belgium; Mutoni Gichoi, China; Ambassador Gatoga Chege, Cuba; Ambassador Salim Chiputi; Major General Mitiri, Egypt; Ambassador Gal Mapulu, Indonesia; Mr. Paul Ndungu, Mozambique; Michael Siarai, Namibia; General Andrew Kenya, Nigeria; Ms. Margaret Shava, Netherlands; Ms. Amina Abdallah Sultan of Oman; Ambassador Jambura Kamau, Pakistan; Boniface Mwiru, Qatar; Mikhail Oyugi, Spain; General Thomas Chepkut, Somalia; Leonard Boyo, Turkey; General George Owino, Uganda; Permanent Representative Professor Richard Bosire, UNESCO; Major General Charles Gitwai, going to IGAD. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Article 132 of the Constitution and Section 5 of the Public Appointment Act number 33 of 2021, on 4th May 2022, His Excellency the President forwarded to the Speaker of the National Assembly a notification of appointment containing the names of and current CVs of 22 members or Kenyans. Some were meant to be ambassadors, nominated to be ambassadors, high commissioners, and permanent representatives for the consideration and subsequent approval to the National Assembly by the National Assembly for the appointment to the position which they had been nominated. I should quickly bring to the attention of the House that pursuant to Section 610 of the Public Appointment Parliamentary Approval Act, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, through the letter notified to the Clerk of the National Assembly of the withdrawal of the approval process of Dr. Caroline Wanchiru Karugu, a nominee for the position of Ambassador to the Republic of Denmark. The committee therefore vetted 21 nominees. Honorable Speaker, the committee held 7 sittings to consider the program, review the preparation, and carry out the vetting. The 21 nominees appeared before the committee on the 16th, the 17th, and the 18th of May 2022 and were vetted in accordance with the provision of the Constitution, the Public Appointment Approval Act number 33 of 2021, the Foreign Service Act 2021, and other relevant statutes, and the National Assembly Standing Order on their suitability otherwise for appointment of ambassador, high commissioner, and a permanent representative. The committee deliberated on the nominees' duly filled questionnaires in accordance with the Section 6 of 8 of the Public Appointment Committee Approval Act 2021, their CVs, report from relevant authorities, and presentation made by the nominees, including their oral submission during the vetting. Honorable Speaker, in compliance with Article 118, Subarticle 1B of the Constitution and Section 6, subsection 9 of the Public Appointment Parliamentary Approval Act, the Clerk of the National Assembly placed an advertisement in the print media on Friday, the 6th of May 2022, inviting interested members of the public to submit any representation they may have by written statement or affidavits with supporting evidence on the suitability or otherwise of their candidates for appointment of the offices of ambassadors, high commissioners, and permanent representatives. They were expected to do so on or before Friday, 13th May 2022 by 5 p.m. Honorable Speaker, by close of business on Friday, 13th May 2022,
At 5 p.m., the committee had received the two memorandum, although none by way of written statement or oath, as provided by the Section 6, subsection 9 of the Public Appointment Parliamentary Approval Act and stipulated in the advertisement in the print media inviting representatives from the public on the suitability of nominees. These were memorandum by S.O. Owino and Associates on behalf of Abdi Dala objecting the approval of Major General Andrew Ikenye for appointment as High Commissioner representing the Republic of Kenya in Nigeria. Memorandum by Max Otieno submitted via email by Max Otieno objecting the approval of Michael Siarai, CPS, for appointment as High Commissioner representing the Republic of Kenya in Namibia. And the Honorable Speaker, there were a couple of other emails which were sent, but they didn't meet the threshold of a memorandum as it stipulated in our acts and in our laws, and therefore we dismissed them on the basis of that, Honorable Speaker. However, it's important to mention that most of them were based on hearsays, they were not even stamped, they were not commissioned, and therefore as a committee we decided not to use them because they didn't amount to what they should have in the way they should appear as per the laws of Kenya. In the memorandum relating to Major General Andrew Ikenye and the Owino and the many others, Honorable Speaker, my committee sat down and they looked at the merits and demerits of the same, and we all agreed it didn't meet the threshold, and therefore we didn't consider that when we were at the final reason not to approve the nominees. Honorable Speaker, the committee deliberated on the memorandum and observed that the memorandum was not a statement made on oath as stipulated in Section 6, subsection 9 of the Public Appointment. Number B, matters raised in the memorandum are still active in court. Evidence presented before the committee indicated that the issue raised by Abdi Dala was still under determination before the Court of Appeal. And we all know the laws of Kenya, they say you are innocent until proven guilty, and we all agreed that we should not punish somebody on the basis that there is a case in court, especially based on the facts that we had at our hand as we were making the decision. The memorandum was therefore rendered inadmissible before the committees. And the many emails that we received in regard to my brother, friend, Vitangendemo, and a few others, we all agreed we should not go to that route. Major General Andrew Ikenye also provided a response, and all of them did give the responses, which vindicated them as not having to be denied the opportunity to serve Kenyans. Honorable Speaker, on the second memorandum, relating to Michael Siarai, we all listened to it. The committee deliberated on the memorandum and observed the memorandum was not a statement made on oath as stipulated in Section 6 of 9 of the Public Appointment Parliamentary Approval Act number 33 of 2021. Articles 95 and 96 of the Constitution provide for the separate mandate of the National Assembly and the Senate respectively. Further, the fourth schedule to the Constitution provides for the distribution of functions between the national government and the county government. It was on this basis that when the nominee received the petition by Max Otieno, he referred the petition to the Senate since it fell within that ambit, and we thought it was not within the purview of the clerk to deal with that, and they referred it to the way it should have been in the first place. And therefore, my committee rendered the whole memorandum inadmissible before my committee on account of those technicalities. Honorable Speaker, the committee having vetted the 21 nominees, one having been withdrawn on the advice of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, made the following chain observation. One nominees, namely Clement Nsomo Kitema to Angola, Mary Mwancha, Australia, Professor Vitangendemo, Belgium, Ms. Mtoni Gichoi, China, Ambassador Gatoga Chege, Cuba, Ambassador Salim Chiputi, Major General Matiri, Egypt, Ambassador Galma Pulu, Indonesia, Mr. Paul Ndungu, Mozambique, Michael Siarai, Namibia, Major General Retired Andrew Ikenye, Nigeria, Margaret Sava, Netherlands, Amin Abdallah, Oman, Nyambura, Kamau, Pakistan, Boniface Mwilu, Qatar, Ambassador Mikhailo Yuge, Spain, Major General retired Thomas Cheptum, Somalia, Leonard Boyo, Turkey, Major General Owino, Uganda, Professor Richard Bosire, UNESCO, Major General retired Charles Gitwai, Migad, are Kenyan citizens and do not hold any dual citizenship. Pursuant to Section 6, Subsection 10 of the Public Appointment Parliamentary Approval Act, the Minister of Foreign Affairs notified the Clerk of the National Assembly of withdrawal of the approval of process of Dr. Caroline Wanjiru Karugo, nominee for the position of Ambassador of the Republic of Kenya to Denmark. All the nominees presented their academic credentials and professional certificates and demonstrated their experience in accordance with the provision of Section 6, Subsection 7 of the Public Appointment Parliamentary Approval Act number 33 of 2011. None of the nominees had been charged in court of law or mentioned adversely in parliamentary committee reports of commission of inquiry in the last 3 years. And a few of those who had issues were cleared by the court, and we therefore didn't see a reason to hold them on that front. All the nominees satisfied the requirements of Article 7(11) in that they do not intend to participate in any other gainful employment. Other nominees do not hold office in any registered political party, hence they satisfied the provision of Article 77, Sub-Article 2 of the Constitution. In regard to Professor Vitanga Ndemo's culpability or otherwise in the sale of Mariri Ranch Limited land, miscellaneous civil application 192 of 2016 had declared the initiation, maintenance, and prosecution of the nominee in the Chief Magistrate's Court and Corruption Court through criminal case number 19 of 2014 was an abuse of criminal justice system, and in contravention of the application, his constitutional rights and freedom of security of the person and the right to secure the protection of the law. And the court further held that the case mentioned or amounted to selective and therefore discriminatory prosecution and gross abuse of the process of court and was oppressive and malicious. The court therefore issued orders of prohibiting the continuation of the Chief Magistrate's Court at Milimani Vaid, criminal case number 19 of 2015, in the matter intended against the nominee. None of the nominees has been dismissed from office under Article 75 of the Constitution for contravention of the provision of Article 75, Sub-Article 1, on conflict of interest, 76, on financial prohibition or restriction of state officers, and 78(2) on dual citizenship of the Constitution. And we all know the cases we had, which were a serious issue last time, but we never experienced any this time round. That by the deadline of receipt of the memorandum from members of the public, the Clerk of the National Assembly had received the two memorandum contesting the suitability of Major General Andrew Kenye and Mikhail Siarai, respectively. The two memoranda were rendered inadmissible before the committee since they did not comply with the requirements of Section 6, Subsection 9 of the Public Appointment Parliamentary Approval Act, which provides that evidence contesting the suitability of a nominee to hold office to which he or she has been nominated should be by a written statement on oath or affidavit. Honorable Speaker, as I wind up, in the book Diplomacy and International Law, and Ambassador Dr. Wilfred writes that traditional diplomacy is practiced as the art and craft of communicating and interchanging among states acting through their representatives or diplomats in the national interest, be it in political, economic, scientific, social, or other, by peaceful means. The author points out that some of the main features of change impacting on diplomacy as known globally, new participants in globalized relations must be given an opportunity, and the techniques and internationalization domestic politics or policies are also taken into account to ensure that the people are going to do what they are meant to be doing to represent the country. I wish to express, Honorable Speaker, my tremendous gratitude to my members of the committee for their input and valuable contribution. And it's important at this point to mention that, Honorable Speaker, I'm privileged to serve under very, very eminent members of the committee who have lots of experience, have been in the committee for many years. They have served in Parliament for very many years, and their experience has really helped me a lot as the chairman to guide me, make me a better person, and of course guide me on the areas we need to make a contribution to make Kenya a better place. So, Honorable Speaker, the input and the valuable contribution during the preparation and the vetting exercise, they sat for long hours and were up earlier in order to vet the 21 nominees, which is a record, Honorable Speaker, in vetting those number of people with the CVs mounting to almost 22 pages on average per person, and all of them we have to comb and make sure that we have captured all the information we needed to capture, was not a mean achievement, and I truly, truly remove my heart for the committee members and the sacrifices they made therein. Because I remember there are times we were in the office, the session would start as early as 6 in the morning, and the members, for the record, broke that, and there were Honorable Charles, I must mention him, Charles Kironzo, would whip us by 5 in the a.m. in the morning. He's already in the office, calling us that he needs quorum, and that was really humbling, and we appreciated that sacrifice. I also take this opportunity on behalf of the committee to thank the officers of the Speaker, where you supported us, Honorable Speaker, tremendously. Like you have always been a gentleman and a wonderful person, willing and ready to mentor young people like us in terms of responsibility and helping us to achieve our full potential. We truly, truly appreciate the support you gave us through your officers and the guidance that you gave therein. And the Clerk of the National Assembly for the logical support accorded to us during the exercise. As a committee, we also appreciated the role played by the media following its coverage of the proceedings, hence ensuring that Kenyans are getting to know the people who are being given the opportunity to go and represent Kenya out there in the world, and making sure that we are getting value, we are getting the right people by way of ensuring that they will hold them to account for the responsibility they have been given, because they are not going to do it for themselves, but other than representing Kenya and ensuring that the face of Kenya is enhanced and accountability of Kenya, whatever responsibility they will be given is increased, transparency, and ensuring that the participation of the public will also take precedence. Honorable Speaker, to the ambassadors, the high commissioners, and permanent representatives, if this House approves the nominations, I urge you to go and serve our great country. It's the highest honor, Honorable Speaker, the country gives you or has given them. Represent our country with industry and integrity, manage our missions diligently, and long after you have come back, we reflect and say, I did my best. I did something great for my country. And I hereby ask my good friend and brother, Kironzo Charles, to second.
Kironzo Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that was very elaborate, so I'll be very brief. I wish to second, Mr. Speaker, say in a summarized manner, most of these nominees were career civil servants. Others were retired major generals. We had 4 major generals, very well experienced, and we had a very good career in the military. Others are lawyers from private sector, Mr. Speaker. In fact, we came across 2 ladies, very, very qualified, senior lawyers, qualified even to be judges. Mr. Speaker, most of these people are very well schooled. Bottom line, Mr. Speaker, the entire team, they were all very experienced. Mr. Speaker, other than a few cases where we got complaints from the public which do not meet the standards of the House, Mr. Speaker, memorandums, and when we looked at even the so-called emails and complaints, Mr. Speaker, we were not convinced it was a good reason to disqualify members. Mr. Speaker, we had only one case, and it's good to mention because out there people have been complaining about shareholders of Malili Ranch, which is now where we have Konza City, Mr. Speaker. And when Bitangen Demo appeared before us, although this is something which took place 2013, 2014, we did ask him what exactly happened, because he had been charged along with other directors of Malili. And he gave a very good explanation, Mr. Speaker. Himself, he went to court, and the court cleared him, because in the first place, he should not have been charged. But what happened, Mr. Speaker, in Malili was very simple. Directors of company and other outsiders stole from shareholders, Mr. Speaker. Government was paying 200,000 per acre. Treasury paid the company. The money did not come through the ministry where Bitangen Demo was a PS. It was paid directly from Treasury to the company. But the directors of the company, Mr. Speaker, sort of convinced the shareholders, actually did not reveal the actual price which government paid, only for the shareholders to realize later when they were being paid an acre, 100,000 instead of 200,000, to realize the right price. Mr. Speaker, they had been conned. The right price having been 200. Thereafter, among the people who were taken to court was Bitangen Demo, but he has his day in court and he was cleared. And because he was cleared, Mr. Speaker, even after we went through the court ruling, it was very clear, Mr. Speaker, it was abuse of court process. And Mr. Speaker, we found him suitable. This is a career lecturer, Mr. Speaker, who has done quite a lot, Mr. Speaker, in the education sector. And we could not actually, Mr. Speaker, go by rumors, and in any case, he was cleared by the court. So, Mr. Speaker, in summary, the committee was convinced that all the nominees, 21 of them, Mr. Speaker, they deserve to be approved by the House. We are convinced, Mr. Speaker, they have the interest of this country in their hearts, and that, Mr. Speaker, they portray the right image to this country. And for example, Mr. Speaker, our nominee to Somalia, Mr. Speaker, a retired Major General, Mr. Speaker, this is Thomas Kipkoskei, Major General Thomas Kipkoskei, Cheptumo, Mr. Speaker. He gave us, because he's already the head of mission in Somalia, he gave us a very interesting scenario, Mr. Speaker. And we realized, Mr. Speaker, with a man like this one, Mr. Speaker, Kenyans can start seeing the other side of Somalia. Because the perception we have is that if you land in Somalia and you're a Kenyan, it is only a matter of time and you're blown in pieces. But Mr. Speaker, he was able to tell us, indeed, when he's going to be serving, leave alone now as the head of the mission, as the ambassador, he's going to invest a lot in encouraging the Chamber of Commerce, the private sector, to tour that country and promote commerce. Because it's very interesting, Mr. Speaker, Somalia exports more to us than we export to Somalia, something which is very ridiculous. So, Mr. Speaker, in a nutshell, I would want to appeal to the House to approve these names. I second, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, I propose the question, which is that taking into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations in its report on the vetting of the nominees for approval as ambassadors, high commissioners, and permanent representatives laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 24th May 2022, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 132, Clause 2, Paragraph E of the Constitution, Section 20, Subsection 2 of the Foreign Service Act Number 12 of 2021, and Sections 3 and 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, this House approves the appointment of the following persons as ambassadors, high commissioners, and permanent representatives. Ambassadors and high commissioners. 1, Mr. Clement Zomo Kiteme, Angola Station. 2, Ms. Mary Mugwanja, Station, Austria. 3, Professor Bitange Demo, Station, Belgium. 4, Ms. Mudhoni Geshohi, Station, China. 5, Ambassador Radvoga Chege, Station Cuba. 6, Ambassador Salim Salim, Station Djibouti. 7, Major General A.G. Matiri, Station Egypt. 8, Ambassador Gal Maboru, Station Indonesia. 9, Mr. Paul Dungo, Station Mozambique. 11, Ms. Margaret Shava, Station Netherlands. 11, Mr. Michael Sialai, Station Namibia. 12, Major General Andrew Ikenye, Station Nigeria. 13, Ms. Amin Abdallah, Station Sultanate of Oman. 14, Ambassador Nyambura Kamau, Station Pakistan. 15, Mr. Bonvis N. Mwilo, Station Qatar. 16, Ambassador Michael Oyugi, Station Spain. 17, Major General Retired Thomas Chepkuto, Station Somalia. 18, Mr. Leonard Boyo, Station Turkey. 19, Major General Retired George Owino, Station Uganda. 20, Professor Richard Bosire, Ambassador stroke Permanent Representative, United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, in brackets UNESCO. And 21, Major General Retired Charles Gitwai, Ambassador stroke Permanent Representative to the Intergovernment Authority for Development, in brackets IGAD. Member for Dagoretti South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I was very much anticipating to contribute in the finance bill, but given this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, I'll spare the House some time by just making two very brief comments. One is that, Mr. Speaker, the names that have been presented here by the committee are names that are agreeable with myself, especially taking note of the process that this committee went through. Very painstaking process to prepare this report to us, and I would like to commend all the appointees and wish them well as they go to their new stations, and single out our National Assembly clerk, Mr. Sialai, who we have all had a front row seat to witness his ability to perform duty whenever he's assigned such an opportunity, and I do congratulate him profusely together with all the other appointees. The second note I would like to make is that today would have been a celebration for the people of Dagoretti South constituency, because the first time the names were put out, we had seen the name of former Member of Parliament, Honorable Dennis Waweru, and we were excited that finally Dagoretti South is getting recognition in national appointments, a constituency that has not seen appointments of PSAs or high-ranking officials since the era of Dr. Geto, way back, over a decade back, Mr. Speaker. However, I did gather that the Honorable Dennis Waweru declined to take the opportunity to be the Consular General in Congo. I would imagine that maybe he had imagined it's a small capital that he would not want to report to, but we would have been excited as people of the Dagoretti South constituency, having one of our own, serving in a market that is opening up, especially at a time like this when the Democratic Republic of Congo is being co-opted into the East African community. And we know what opportunities are out there, not only for business and enterprise, but also even in furthering the Pan-African agenda. So, Mr. Speaker, while we heartily congratulate the others, we also feel a bit crestfallen when we realize that one of our own has actually opted out of this appointment by His Excellency the President, but we do wish them well. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I do hope I'll get my position and ranking in the finance bill that I was willing to contribute to. I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Honorable Wangwe.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I wish also to thank the Chair of Defense for good work done. And Honorable Speaker, support the appointment of these ambassadors and representatives, Honorable Speaker. I just wish also, in line with what Honorable KJ has said, just single out maybe one or two of these persons, Honorable Speaker, whom I know personally, in addition to Mr. Shalai, Honorable Speaker, who has served us well. I've known him, Honorable Speaker, since I joined Parliament in 2013, a very hard-working officer, a very loyal officer, and Honorable Speaker, a man whom I know will represent Kenya very well, and we are proud of him. Honorable Speaker, there is also one gentleman whom I know, Mr. Leonard Boyo, a very good civil servant, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I wish to confirm that Honorable Mr. Boyo happens to have been my neighbor since 2007, Honorable Speaker. We live together, and we know each other. We've grown our families together. And Honorable Speaker, it's a pleasure that a person you know very well, a career civil servant who has served the country, Honorable Speaker, in various capacities, is now being recognized after this long service. Honorable Speaker, among others, whose CV can speak for themselves. Somebody cannot be a Major General, Honorable Speaker, to retire and be sent, then you doubt his career. That's a man who has been seasoned and proven in terms of career build-up. I wish to commend and congratulate them and ask the Honorable Speaker, this House approves these names as fast as possible so that they represent us wherever they are going. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I wish to support.
Member for Soba North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just want to add my voice also in supporting and to thank the committee for this good work. Mr. Speaker, I will not spend much. I just want to say that I've also seen quite a number of people that I know here, people I've worked with, and some that I suspect I know because of the way their names are presented. I may not know if they are the ones. Some who appear like lawyers, I know. Mr. Speaker, I know the committee said issues about Professor Bitange Ndemo, but I can tell you when I was here, we worked with him very closely on the issue of child online protection for children, something that's very dear to my heart. I know Mudhoni Gishohi, who's done a lot of good work in the past, Mr. Speaker. Of course, our own very own clerk, Mr. Michael Sialai, who has done an excellent job here in Parliament. Mr. Speaker, Margaret Shava, who has also done a lot of good work in the human rights sector and women's rights sector. Amina Abdallah, if it's the same one who was with us here in Parliament, she was an excellent legislator. And Mr. Speaker, also, I don't know if the same Ambassador Nyambura Kamau is the same as Jean. I'm not too sure if she's the one. She could be the one who was my boss at FIDA. I'm not too sure because she was an ambassador. No. I'm hearing yes and no. But I know two Nyambura Kamaus, if she's the one, also an excellent person. Mr. Speaker, I may not mention all of them, but I know quite a number of people here. Very excellent. I don't know if Mr. Paul Ndungu is the same one who is an advocate, a senior advocate, if he's the one again. Very good career and good work. Mr. Speaker, because the committee has not raised any issue that it's outstanding or any issue that is of concern, even for those that we may not have specific issues on, I just want to really thank the committee, but also indicate that I'm happy with the number of women that were appointed. I was actually trying to work out the numbers, but unfortunately, because there are some I can't tell whether they are men or women. I failed miserably in determining, but at least I've been able to count quite a number of women, and I hope you have followed the 1/3 gender rule. Otherwise, we hope that they represent Kenya well. I support. Thank you.
Member for Taveta.
Asante sana mheshimiwa. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipatia fursa hii, nami pia kupongeza kamati ambayo inasimamia masuala ya nje na haswa kuwapongeza mabalozi waliopatiwa nafasi ya kwenda kufanya kazi kwenye ubalozi katika nchi mbalimbali. Mheshimiwa Spika, kati yetu sisi sote wengi wetu tunamfahamu Mheshimiwa Amina Abdallah kwa kazi nzuri ile ambayo amefanya akiwa hapa, haswa akiwa manake amekuwa mbunge awamu 3 na akiwa mwenyekiti wa kusimamia masuala ya mazingira, na alifanya kazi nzuri sana. Vile vile sasa hivi kwenye tume ya kwenye tume ya kuangalia mishahara ya wafanyikazi wa umma. Vile vile pia anaendelea kufanya kazi nzuri. Kama tunavyojua, yeye ni mmoja wa makamishna wale ambao tuliwatuma kule waende kushughulikia masuala ya mishahara ya wafanyikazi wa umma. Nyambura Kamau ambaye bado alikuwa ni balozi tayari, kwa sababu alikuwa amewekwa kwenye ofisi ya Los Angeles. Alifanya kazi kule na alifanya kazi nzuri, na haswa nakumbuka wakati tulikuwa na shida ya wale watoto ambao walikuwa wamefurushwa makwao na wakachomeka, balozi Nyambura Kamau alifanya kazi nzuri kwa kuwatafutia hospitali ile ambayo wale watoto waliweza kwenda kupatiwa matibabu na kuwasaidia jamii zao kuweza kupata sehemu za kukaa upande wa California. Bwana Bitange Ndemo tunafahamu akiwa katibu mkuu wa kudumu katika wizara, na kazi ile nzuri ambayo alifanya, manake wakati alipopatiwa kazi pia mimi nilikuwa waziri na tuliweza kufanya kazi kwa ukaribu sana. Vile vile Margaret Shava tunamfahamu kwa kazi zake zile alizofanya, na kazi zote zile ambazo amepatiwa na kiserikali tunajua amezifanya kwa bidii sana. Mudhoni pia ambaye ni wakili amefanya kazi nzuri. Tumeweza kufanya kazi na yeye kwenye shughuli mbalimbali zangu haswa za kibinafsi, na najua kuwa wataweza kufanya kazi. Na hao wengine wote nataka kuchukua fursa hii kuweza kuwapongeza kuwa wamepata nafasi ya kwenda kupeperusha bendera zetu ya nchi ya Kenya kwenye nchi mbalimbali, na waweze kufanya kazi kwa bidii. Kwa hivyo nawatakia kila laheri katika kazi zao. Asante sana.
Finally, the member for Gatanga.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me a chance also to make my contribution. First, I would like to congratulate the committee for a thorough job done in terms of clarity, in terms of qualification and experience of the nominees. Honorable Speaker, most of the nominees here are known to me. If I point out Professor Bitange Ndemo, he's a close friend of mine. We gym with him at Parkland Sports Club, and I know he's highly qualified to do the job he has been proposed for. Mudhoni Geshohi, Honorable Speaker, is also well known to me. She's a director of Thika Greens, which is in Gatanga, which is a major investment. Mudhoni Geshohi is also known to do a lot of community work, and she has served the people of Murang'a in various capacities, and we are happy, and I know she'll do the job as proposed. Ambassador Gadonga Gachege is a personal friend, and he has served in the diplomatic community for a long time, and is highly qualified, and I'm sure that he'll be able to do the job well. Ambassador Nyambura Kamau, and I wanted to correct, is not the same as Jean Kamau. Ambassador Nyambura is from Gatanga, and she has served in LA and in France. She's a lawyer who is well known in Nairobi, and she has practiced for many years, and she's highly qualified, and she has served us very well. Honorable Speaker, when you are not listening, I mentioned that Professor Bitange Ndemo is known to me. We gym with him. We gym with him at Parkland Sports Club. And Honorable Speaker, I also want to encourage you. We start gymming at 3 a.m. to about 10. And because we are aging, Honorable Speaker, and because you are involving yourself in many things, I think I would like to invite you, when you are free, spare some time and you come and run with us. Yeah. Because what you are engaged in, he's aging gracefully, but I'm encouraging him to join us also.
Not running away from anything.
Don't run away from me. Come with him together, Honorable Speaker. And I know sometimes we socialize together, and you know what we take, what we are not taking. When you are not taking what we take, please join me. Honorable Speaker, as I was saying, Ambassador Nyambura Kamau is well known to me. She's from Gatanga, and we are very happy. As a great people of Gatanga, we are very happy. You know, we are known for music. All the great musicians, Honorable Speaker, from Central Province come from Gatanga. And Honorable Speaker, when you had those great dreams, I had proposed in this parliament that we are going to give you a discount. And when I talked to the musicians, when I talked to Peter Kegia, when I talked to Jeriwa Gatanga, Gashadiwa, they all agreed. If Speaker was going to run for the presidency, we all agreed we are going to give you a 50% discount, Honorable Speaker. But maybe your time is coming, Honorable Speaker. I want to encourage you. Honorable Speaker, again, nominee Mr. Michael Silai, our great clerk. I'm very happy that he has also been nominated. Honorable Speaker, in the past I've served as a civil servant, but I want to say the service offered in this parliament, in terms of the performance of the employee, the respect the employees have for us, it is great. And I would like to congratulate Michael Silai for this appointment. And even other civil servants, Honorable Speaker, I would encourage them to come and benchmark judiciary, to come and benchmark with Parliament. The ministries, they should come here to benchmark so that they can serve Kenyans in a better way. Honorable Speaker, with those few remarks, I want to say that I support the report and I wish all the nominees well in their future endeavors. Thank you very much. Katanga has gotten.
Very well.
Thank you.
As there's no question to be put, there being no other contributor, I call upon the mover to reply.
Can I? Give me space, please. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Some things that we need to put on record, because he's a public figure and it's only fair that we put the record straight. Honorable Dennis Waweru was not in the list, and I think being a politician, this might hurt him so badly if the members of his constituency imagine that he was given an opportunity to represent them in whatever country it was, and he declined. The truth is, he wasn't in the list, and to the best of my knowledge, he was not given an opportunity and declined. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank the President, Honorable Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, for the honor he gave me at my age to serve in the first committee of Parliament as their chairman. Notwithstanding the experience that I've had, Honorable Speaker, it's beyond my mind, beyond my understanding, but I truly want to thank him on behalf of the people of Nyaribari Church and on my own behalf and my family. We are truly humbled for this opportunity, and the experience that I'm getting will really make me a better leader in the days to come. And not to mention the support I've gotten from the majority leader who stood in the gap for me when I needed him most, and I truly made a commitment to support me, and he has been guiding me on how to manage this nomination process. And the Honorable Speaker, on my own behalf and on behalf of the committee, our majority leader, Kimunya, we are happy and thank you for the leadership and support you gave us. To my committee members, thank you for standing in the gap for everybody, standing in the gap for the Kenyans, doing the honorable thing of vetting and ensuring that we are getting quality members who are going to represent Kenya out there in the world. And I'm sure you did your best, you sacrificed your time. This is a campaign period. For you to stop campaigning and take your time out to come for all 1 week, 7 days, none back to back, that was an honor that I don't take for granted. Not to mention the support you have given me, knowing that some of you are more experienced than I am, but still you support me to make me a better leader and a better person in the days to come. Honorable Speaker, with those very many words, I support, and we are...
No, you don't support. It's your motion.
I move, Honorable Speaker.
You beg to reply.
I beg to reply.
Yes.
Still further guidance I'm getting from you, sir.
Very well.
Thank you.
Well, honourable members, for some obvious reasons, I'll not put the question on this motion today. The grandfather of the house is whispering, why not? But the grandfather of the house is reminded that there is a national prayer breakfast tomorrow morning at 7:30 at the Safari Park Hotel. I made the announcement yesterday, the communication, but I can see at this rate he is forgetting too fast. So, and he is accordingly reminded before we get back here at 2:30 tomorrow. Very well. Next order.
Order number 10, the Finance Bill, National Assembly Bill number 22 of 2022, second reading, resumption of debate.
Who was on the floor? According to the records, Honorable Millie Odhiambo, you have a balance of 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, that is true. And I thank you for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, when we adjourned, I indicated that I support the committee's move to reduce taxes, especially on basic commodities like food. Mr. Speaker, I support the increase of taxes on tobacco products. Mr. Speaker, one of the areas that I would like the committee maybe to explain further is on the issue of betting, because we said we need actually a balanced agenda, Mr. Speaker, because the revenue must be collected in order for us to meet the budget, even though we are facing different challenges. And I think if I heard the committee chair well, she had indicated that the ministry, the Treasury had suggested a 7.5% increment in the past, and this time I'd moved it to 20%. And the committee were of the view that they stick at 7.5. And I was just wondering why we can't increase it just a little bit to maybe 10% or 15%. And I just want to notify the chair that absent a good explanation, I'll probably move an amendment to increase that portion. Mr. Speaker, again on the issue of taxes on beer, the committee had indicated again that on the issue of value chain, they were not very encouraged to increase the taxes on beer. But again, if we actually then don't offer taxation, how are we going to raise the revenues? Because we are going to definitely have a shortfall. And so for beer, again, I think this is one of the areas that we need to reconsider and perhaps increase the taxes. Madam Speaker, sorry, I noticed that the chair has changed. Madam Speaker, one of the areas that I found a bit curious was the increase of taxes on beauty products. Madam Speaker, there is a gendered notion about beauty products, that whenever people hear that the beauty product, it has to do with women alone. Of course, a lot of the women use beauty products much more than men. But our modern man, if you go to the salons now, they are the ones who are doing manicure, pedicure, they are doing facials. So that is the truth. And so even when we are talking about beauty products, even the men are also culprits. So let's not make it basically a gendered issue. But Madam Speaker, I also heard Honorable Gladys was alluding to the fact that they had a challenge from the men in their committee that were saying that they prefer their women natural, so they don't want beauty products. Mr. Speaker, if you were to insist on our men to come to the house natural, then they would be coming here naked, because the suits they wear are, of course, not natural. So what the women choose to add on, whether it's powder, whether it's lipstick or whatever else they want to put, really that should not be their concern. But I also want to indicate that sometimes I've even given it as a test on my Facebook account, and I put on the Facebook and I say, which one do you like? And the men tell you, I like this one because she's natural. And that person is not natural. They even have at least a foundation or a powder or something. It's very difficult to find a woman who doesn't have one of those very basic things. So those, or Vaseline, that's also a beauty product. So first of all, I want to disabuse you of the notion that beauty products is about women. But even if women use it much more than the men, we should not be punished for looking nice and for preserving our bodies or skins. Because we know if you go out here and you don't have Vaseline on your face, Madam Speaker, you will come with the cracks on your face, especially now that we are having campaigns. But that aside, I do not oppose increase on that, because we have to balance between necessities and those which we don't consider. I'd rather have a cracked skin but with food in my stomach. So if you are coming with, between beauty products and food, then I agree with the committee on the beauty products that they could be taxed. I also agree with the committee that statutory instruments must be brought before the House upon expiry of the stipulated time. Otherwise, we'll be ceding our oversight roles since we represent the interest of the public. I also agree with the committee on their opposition to the provision on the requirement to pay 50% of a disputed amount in any dispute between KRA and an individual, including corporate individuals, personalities. Madam Speaker, this is because if we don't do this, we know that sometimes this is a process that can be abused. If I do not like you and I work in the government, I just use KRA, especially at an election time, and I slap you with a KRA tax of 100 million. So you must deposit 50 million, Madam Speaker, and you know how much it is for campaign. So, Madam Speaker, if you are going with the rule of law, then we cannot presume that you have actually faulted when you have not. You will not be presumed guilty until you have actually your matter is dealt with. So I do support the committee in doing away with that. Madam Speaker, I also note that we are promoting local products, but we must also seek to have value addition so that we are competitive, so that supporting local products should not be an end in itself, but we must also, whether it is not through this but through other means or maybe relevant ministries, that we make sure that even for our local products there is value addition, so that even when we are exempting them from tax, their products do not then get stuck on the shelves as people find shortcuts to look for other products out of the country. Madam Speaker, I will finalize by reiterating that I do very strongly support the committee on reducing taxes on food commodities. But again, I know when I was speaking, Honorable Gladys was consulting with Honorable Ichung'wah. I think Honorable Ichung'wah is missing his days as chair of the Budget Committee. And I indicated that I hope that the committee can explain why there is a proposal not to agree with the Treasury on tax on betting, because we must have a balance even if we are living in difficult times. Otherwise, we will propose an amendment to increase it. With those few remarks, I support. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And let me just begin by telling the Honorable Millie. Of course, I do consult with the Honorable Nyasuna, but I have nothing to miss of those days that you allude to. But I am very keen on issues that touch on the lives of Kenyans, and that's why, Honorable Speaker, I support many of the recommendations that have been given by the Finance Committee led by Honorable Nyasuna Wanga, especially on food items, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, I was just telling the Honorable Gladys Wanga that it's only fair that we spare time when we come to third reading, and I would really encourage her to write to the Speaker on the particular provisions on food items, on flour, on maize flour, wheat flour, all the consumer items that were touched on, to actually withdraw those particular clauses from this bill, so that they are not even, we don't even need to consider them in committee of the whole House, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the other issue that I was consulting with Honorable Wanga on, and which is very dear to me, Honorable Speaker, is on the cost of fuel. You do remember that the Finance Committee had a proposed bill on fuel, taxes on, and levies on fuel that we discussed as a motion in this House last year. At the time, there was a crisis on fuel prices, and we had a bill pending that has just disappeared somehow. And maybe Honorable Nyasuna should tell us where that bill has disappeared to the proposed bill that came without motion. But I was only encouraging her that we do expect that at the time of third reading, that the provisions that were there on those taxes and levies on fuel prices will now be incorporated into this finance bill.
Honorable Wanga, you're on a point of intervention.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I just wanted to inform the Honorable Ichung'wa that the Committee on Finance actually did conclude on its work. We carried out public participation. We brought a bill to this House. We carried out public participation again on the bill. We prepared a report. We tabled it on to this House. And our job and responsibility ends at that point. The rest is carried by the House Business Committee. So that should not be brought to my doorstep. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And I do take that point of information from Wanga. And she knows I know that. And she also knows that I know who is sitting on it. And therefore, because the leader of government business in this House is the leader of majority, and they know why they are sitting on that bill and that report from the Finance Committee, I would really implore on the Honorable Wanga to push the Honorable Kimunya to allow, we may not have time, Honorable Speaker, let me just go straight to the point, to even consider that particular bill now. But all the tax provisions and levies that we had discussed, and as Honorable Wanga says that were tabled in that report, I want to encourage the Honorable Wanga to now, if really she is intent on bringing down the cost of living for Kenyans, to now incorporate all the provisions that were there in that particular bill into this finance bill and the Finance Act of 2022-2023. Because if we really want to deal with the cost of living in this country, we must deal with the cost of fuel and fuel products, Honorable Speaker. And that particular bill had all those provisions. And Honorable Wanga, I just want to assure you that should you not have the temerity to face Honorable Kimunya on those particular provisions, I will just lift them from the bill, and there will be amendments that will table before this House to be incorporated in the finance bill for this particular year, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, if you go to page 98 of the report, there's a gentleman called Mr. Njoroge Waweru, and this gentleman has been very consistent. I first engaged Mr. Njoroge Waweru as a member of parliament because he's my constituent coming from Ondira in Kikuyu. But I engaged him substantively on tax matters, on textbooks, periodicals, and journals, Honorable Speaker, VAT on these items, way back in 2018 when he became chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, and he approached me in the streets in Kikuyu, and I advised him these provisions are better handled in the Finance Committee, and he has been very consistent. And I must commend Mr. Njoroge for his consistency over the years, pursuing the issue of textbooks, journals, and periodicals to remove VAT on them. And it is sad that after 4 years of engagement every year with the Committee on Finance, they have never seen the need to reduce VAT on textbooks, journals, and periodicals, and he says it is to encourage a reading culture in the country. Honorable Speaker, let me also state I have engaged Mr. Njoroge this afternoon, and I will indeed also be bringing an amendment to at least deal with the VAT element on textbooks. I think every member of parliament who is in this House today will agree with me that many parents are crying because of the cost of textbooks, both for primary, secondary, and even those who are in colleges and universities, Honorable Speaker. And one of the ways that we can ease the pain to parents is to reduce the cost of textbooks by removing VAT on textbooks, especially school textbooks. And he has been very kind, the gentleman, and he agreed we can drop the journals and periodicals, and therefore be asking the Honorable Wanga and her committee to support that particular amendment when it comes to be. Honorable Speaker, there are sin taxes that were proposed by the National Treasury on alcohol, on betting, and I want to agree with Honorable Millie that there are some of those things that we may need to reconsider, because at the end of the day, we must also look at other alternative sources of revenue raising by government other than those that will really affect Kenyans. Honorable Speaker, if you ask me, increasing taxes on advertising revenues, on betting, that cost will be offloaded to the person who is advertising, and the consumer will never have to bear. And a consumer of betting products, Honorable Speaker, is a consumer who at the end of the day, just like someone who is drinking alcohol, smoking, will spend because it's something they enjoy doing. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, even on nicotine products, there are particular products, especially a product called Lift, that we discussed in this House last year and had amendments, and I'll also be bringing amendments on nicotine products that are not necessarily cigarettes, but substitutes to cigarettes, like that Lift, that has become a very dangerous product, especially to young people and school-going children. Even our teachers and many parents would not know what product is it that students are using, and it makes them look and feel high, Honorable Speaker, and we must discourage the use of these products, especially by youth, by imposing punitive taxes. And indeed, I will be proposing amendments that will bring very punitive taxes. Honorable Speaker, there are also other amendments, Honorable Speaker, that would touch on issues, again, that would raise revenue for government and encourage local production. We have companies now in Thika and in Nairobi that are producing SIM cards. We need to bring in tax measures that will discourage imported products on telephone items that we can produce locally. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, last year I did move amendments touching on imported onions, imported potatoes, and imported eggs, and imposed an excise duty, which is a source of revenue for the Kenyan government, at 25%. It is shocking, Honorable Speaker, that if you look at the provisions of this bill, Honorable Speaker, the CS is now proposing to remove excise duty on what he calls fertilized eggs of tariff numbers 0407.11, and the other one, imported by hatcheries upon recommendation by the Cabinet Secretary responsible for matters relating to livestock. And I'm asking Honorable Speaker, and I asked the CS National Treasury when he read out his revenue-raising measures here the other day, how will the Cabinet Secretary in charge of livestock or agriculture determine what hatcheries he will license or allow to import these fertilized eggs without paying excise duty, Honorable Speaker? And yet we have hatcheries in this country, Honorable Speaker. We have a hatchery in Kikuyu, the Mogoko Poultry Farm, that is hatching these eggs locally. Honorable Speaker, there is a danger of even bringing chicks whose DNA composition is not amiable to the Kenyan environment, and you get farmers buying chicks from hatcheries abroad that cannot survive under our weather and conditions, and they die in less than a week or so. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, I also bring an amendment to actually delete that particular provision. Let us protect our local hatcheries, our local poultry farmers, so that we produce chicks and chicken that is amiable to our local environment, and also encourage local hatcheries, even from hustlers who are using fertilized eggs locally, using hatcheries that are being manufactured by our Juakali artisans right here in Gikomba, Honorable Speaker, and therefore not encourage big hatcheries hatching chicks in South Africa, Mexico, and elsewhere.
Okay, conclude. 1 minute, conclude.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I was just saying half a second to conclude. I was saying so that we protect our local hatcheries, and Honorable Speaker, also local production, even of potatoes, onions, and everything else that we produce locally. With those very many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg to support and look forward to the third reading of this particular bill. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Dr. Nyikal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support this bill, and Madam Speaker, I also want to appreciate the work that has been done by the Finance Committee to actually get the very tight balance between raising revenue and reducing taxes so that the prices of commodities don't go up. It's particularly important that we increase as much taxes as possible and reduce our dependence on debts. So, Madam Speaker, I support the reduction of taxes on food items. I think every time, however hard it is, we must actually look at the food items. People are really suffering, and protecting food items is something I will support a lot. On the so-called sin taxes, on tobacco, I definitely have no problem, because if possible, if it was my wish, we would just actually ban tobacco products completely. Because even if we raise money from it, the problem is that you are actually making people sick, and the amount of money you will use treating them is never even equal to the taxes that are raised. So I think it's something we should actually, if possible. We tried, when the Director of Medical Service, to actually ban them. That's when we introduced these smoking spots that you see. On beauty products, again, there has to be a balance. They are not essential, but they are useful. But again, it is a way where we can introduce taxes because they are not strictly essential. And in any case, if you are saying that the men will prefer that the ladies use them, let the men pay for them for the ladies. So they will raise some taxes on that. But again, we have also to be very careful on the beauty products because some of them, if not well controlled, actually have harmful effects that are very long-lasting. Now, Speaker, I don't understand why we can't just go straight be hard on betting. In fact, there's so much betting that I don't understand whether radio stations are actually now on communication, they're actually betting agencies. Because there's so much of it, and I'm not so sure it is helpful to us. Therefore, if we can't control it, we should actually get money on it. Madam Speaker, to say that if you have a dispute with KRA, you pay 50%, I think that is extremely punitive, and we also know the difficulty people have. Even if you are later on to win the case, it's very unlikely that you will get to a 50% back. Or even if you do, it will take so much trouble and so much pain. I think that I support it should not be there at all. On fuel, this is where we have to look very, very, very carefully. As much as a good way of raising tax, and as much as we know that with the international situation like the war in Ukraine, it's a hard place, but that is where we should look keenly, because next to the food items, fuel is a major promoter of inflation and the high cost of commodities. And again, Madam Speaker, there's one thing in the fuel industry that I think we need to look at. EPRA regulation of fuel does not actually support the resellers. And yet, when we had problems recently, we realized that the big importers actually tended to hold fuel, to actually hold fuel, thereby by holding fuel so that they can make bigger profits. And they actually even tend to predict or to hold fuel expecting that there will be increases by EPRA, and therefore they make profits that are actually not fair on the public at large. But I'm particularly concerned that they actually are not encouraging the resellers, because sometimes the prices at which they sell to resellers that actually provide most of the outlets, I think of the 4,000 or so outlets, over half, more than half, are by the small-time retailers. And the prices at which they are sold the products is almost the pump price. So I think EPRA should actually find out the best way of actually supporting the small resellers in the industry. I know they complain that the resellers perhaps are involved in adulteration, but that is a regulation that they can come out and actually act on without actually punishing. A large number of resellers are actually getting out of business, and I think we cannot leave it to just the importers import and then they go for the profits. If they resell, I think the distribution is better and more people actually get employed. Now, textbooks, I think looking at the number of books, the textbooks that we recommend for our children, actually we need to remove VAT from that. You look at the number of books the kids have, the burden it puts on the parents to buy them. The best way is actually to remove the VAT on textbooks. In fact, I think it's actually just
Gadho Mbugua almaarufu Prosecutor kwenye kipindi Ukipendacho Vioja Mahakamani kwenye runinga ya KBC Channel 1 anaomba usaidizi wako kudhibiti gharama ya matibabu ya figo. Jamaa na marafiki wameandaa mchango mnamo